As the official healthcare provider of Minnesota United, Allina Health is dedicated to delivering pro-level care for our Loons. But our partnership goes much deeper than what happens on the field. From our shared support of youth-focused nonprofits like Roots for the Home Team to empowering adaptive athletes through the MNUFC Power Soccer Team, Allina Health and Minnesota United are committed to making our communities all together better. Learn more at allinahealth.org/loons. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Sound of the Loons presented by Allina Health. And honestly, I'm guessing this is going to be the last one of 2024. I mean, I'd like to think that everybody's going to work next week. Actually, I don't want anyone to work next week. Everybody should be enjoying their families and not be on a Zoom call or on a podcast. So it's a very special guest today. CEO of Minnesota United, Shari Ballard, joins me right in the midst of all the hoopla and the craziness of the offseason. I asked Khaled last week, I said, I know it's the offseason, but it's not really the offseason for certain individuals. And everybody's got to, jump right back on the grind to keep track of what's going on. He was at the Combine last week. So thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. And just how's your off season in air quotes going?
Well, it's not an off season yet. So I think you were right about that. I mean, it's still a busy time of year, when once the guys are done and we get the year-end stuff done, with sporting, all the other stuff starts, the off-season planning starts, which you talked to Khaled about, and we've got the whole rest of the club, so it's year-end budgeting, it's year-end performance appraisals, it's getting budgets set for next year, getting the plans set for next year. So it's still pretty busy around here. Once we get through the rest of this week, a number of folks will get time off between Christmas and New Year's, which will be nice. But I mean, you know how this is. It's sports, so there's something going on year round, even if the guys aren't playing.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, sports is just that. And now, especially with the nature of the beast with 24/7 news cycles and all these off-season, I was looking today on MLSsoccer.com about what the off-season schedule is. And it's like the secondary reentry window, you know what I mean? Like there's so many mechanisms to Major League Soccer that maybe people don't fully understand and maybe people don't want to. I mean, I remember talking to Manny like 2 years ago and he's like, I can't even keep track of all of it, and then it's also kind of changing at times. But if we want to hit on 2024 from a soccer perspective first, what was sort of your overall feeling? Disappointing last game, but also there's like this feeling like so great to get there after what this club had, the inconsistencies as far as not inconsistencies, but the unknown with new coach and sporting. Like what did 2024 feel like to you once you got to sit back and reflect a little bit?
Yeah, I would say on balance, I'm super happy with the year. I'm happy with the year on the field. I'm really happy with the year in terms of the culture, value system, how the club is evolving in terms of collaborating, working together collectively to bring our mission to life. You're right. It was a roller coaster. If I went back and sort of broke it down on the field side of it, I was really thrilled with the way the season started. I thought Cam did an absolutely terrific job of putting stability in, getting us off to a very great start in the beginning of the season. His leadership, you sort of see it a bit on the pitch, but his leadership off of it and bringing a whole bunch of people together was terrific. I was thrilled to get Khaled here, to get Eric, Dennis, Cristiano from a goalkeeping perspective, then Tom. So I would say sort of as we get through the first games and then as the season starts to build, the off the field focus was getting the right staff in place, the right combination of experiences and the value system and culture we want to continue to build for the club. So I was really happy with the number one person we wanted in each of those roles ended up saying yes, and we got him. And then obviously played pretty well and then got into the summer and had a skid that was frustrating for everybody, me included. but I was really pleased with how the guys bounced back. It was great to make the playoffs. It was great to win in the first round of the playoffs and then get to the semis. I would say, if I'm being fair, that exceeded for what mine and Khaled's expectations were going into the year. With all of the rebuild, we wanted to make the playoffs and felt like, okay, if we make the playoffs and we make progress on the things we're trying to do internally in terms of aligning things and building this the way we want to, we'll call that good. So I would say on balance, I was very, very pleased with the year. And as I talked to Eric and Dennis after the last game and told them both separately, I'm super proud of what they and the guys accomplished on the field and our staff. I'm equally proud of how they go about doing it. We all want the same thing. We want to win a cup. And when we win it, we want to be really proud of how we did it. We don't want to look back and say, hey, we won a cup. Now we feel like we have to take a shower because of how we went about doing it. So, I'm on balance. It was a busy year, but on balance, I'm really pleased.
What about from a club perspective, just overall business standpoint? Because there was a lot of new things for fans to take in as far as what is this team going to look like? Season tickets, there is a revenue piece to this that you have to.
Yes, there is.
You have to wear both hats, so what did it look like for you? I mean, because I know you always just rave about every aspect of your staff, the front office, the ticket sales. I mean, we go down the line, right? And then also there's the sporting side, which gets a lot of attention.
And our stadium ops folks, who they all do a great job on a daily basis, but bringing that experience to life with our fans on game day, a lot goes into that. And I rave about them for good reason because they're really good.
So when you look at the club as a whole in 2024, did you feel like you hit some of the benchmarks that you were hoping to from like a overall club standpoint? I mean, the stadium still seems sold out to me every time I've seen it and been there. And I had, Max Brados and others that have been in a lot of stadiums around the world raving about that environment and that Real Salt Lake game.
I saw his comments coming from him. That meant a lot. I would say across the board, I'm just super proud of the year. I mean, we grew attendance at Allianz Field this year, almost 10%. Our season ticket renewal rates were still some of the best in the league. I think the fans, I don't have relationships, obviously, with every single one of our season ticket members. That's a lot of people. But I do have relationships with season ticket members and talk to them throughout the year. And there's some of them who a couple times a year, we'll go have breakfast or lunch. And so they tell me what they think, which I really like, actually. Like, I don't agree with all of it all the time, but I like knowing what they think, and they're smart. And I would say on balance, I feel a lot of support from our season ticket members. They know soccer. They're smart about how this goes. And so they knew when you make as many changes as we made in the offseason last year, because it wasn't just the coaching staff. It was a lot of the support staff around that too. We changed how we do recruiting. We changed some of the strength and conditioning components of what we do. And they were, I think, on balance, reasonably, I think patient with what we were trying to get done. So I was pleased with all of that. I think in terms of the stadium experience, like I said, attendance was up, season ticket stuff really strong. The other component, obviously, that matters a lot to our success is what we're doing with our partners, our corporate partners. And just a really good year, too, on that front. We maintained and grew our relationships with most of our key partners and added some new ones, too. It's not, I don't give myself an A+. There's stuff, I want us to be better at. But I think in terms of the things that we navigated collectively, I'm pleased across all the fronts in terms of performance on the pitch, what we're able to do and continuing to grow and deepen our partner relationships, our season ticket members and how that grew and the evolution there. I'm pleased with all of it.
Before we deep dive into sort of the soccer side of it, I want to just hit a little bit more on the community aspect, because a lot of your partners that you're talking about are also involved in the community initiatives. We can talk about Toro and we can talk about Make-A-Wish. You could, there's so many different things that this club is involved, which is a huge piece of what you wanted to accomplish, a huge piece of what Khaled has talked about time and time again. So even when you look at that and you have breakfast with some of these season ticket members, this is a fan base that thrives off of community and community involvement and supporting and lifting people up in every aspect of life. So when you look at that and how you navigated those partnerships, but giving back, where do you grade yourself? Because I know that was a big piece coming into the season as well.
And we also had a leadership transition there too. Corey used to run community relations for us, and Corey, absolutely fantastic. And so we also transitioned our leadership there. I think that team, relatively small but mighty, I had a really, really good year. I mean, you highlighted some of the major things that are, I think, like when I look, I mean, you know this, but when I joined the club, like the number one thing I wanted to get in terms of my own growth as a human was much, sort of better understanding of the community and to be in it on more levels. And, so we continue to do, work that we've done with Allianz since the beginning of food distribution at Allianz Field, the needs there in the community this year in terms of food insecurities with the cost of food inflation have grown. They're even greater right now than they were during COVID. And so being able to do those things to try to help just a little bit is super meaningful to us. It's meaningful to our partners. So that's been a staple for us, and we continue to do that this year. We do the pit. You mentioned Toro. We do the pitch rebuild with Toro. So we did that also this year in partnership with St. Paul Parks and Recs. That's a fun thing to do because you so see the results of your work. Like we did it at Highland Hills this year, and you go and it's like we get there in the morning and it's dirt, and we leave in the afternoon and there's a world-class soccer field down and the sprinklers are running and we're filthy from head to toe. And it just is cool to be able to do stuff like that. I think one of the things that really stood out this year was Make-A-Wish with Carter and his family. They're tremendous people. And that's one where you probably can actually see how the whole club touches things. That was one that, everybody was involved in. The sport,
and the other club too.
the coaches, yeah, everybody. The other,
because they had to approve the fact that you're having them on the pitch and you're doing this whole thing,
Their goalkeeper couldn't have been better. I mean, so I think things like that, where you just really can sort of directly see how you can try to make the community just a little bit better. It's all the sports teams here do that. That was one of the things I've learned since I've been in the job. I mean, it's not just us; they all do it.
Yep.
But there is sort of a special edge to it, I think, in soccer, and for sure with this club, because it's just built so much into I take no credit for it, but it's built so much into the identity of the club. I appreciate you asking too, because that's probably beyond the soccer games themselves and the people I get to work with every day. That aspect is probably the most fulfilling aspect of the role.
Well, or the kids showing up to bring the game ball, like whatever it is, it's crazy. Like you watch that, and I watch that from the booth, and it's like you can't help but. I mean, something so tiny as handing the game ball, is like monumental in their eyes, and I think that's the thing is it doesn't have to be something, it could be something so small that can make such a difference. And then the other thing I was going to ask you about, because I just saw the other day the Power Soccer team signing all those contracts.
We've got an academy. Yeah, team. we've added an academy team to Power Soccer. We love Power Soccer.
Yeah.
We absolutely love it. So yeah, just like last week.
Yeah,
we've had our first team Power Soccer team, and they are very good. And so, we just added the academy on Sunday. In fact, Manny did that one for us, so he was there on Sunday. And he sent me a text while he was there, and he said, "I think my night is going better than yours because my Detroit Lions were getting killed by the Buffalo Bills." And I'm like, "I think that is probably correct, Manny." He sent some pictures from it, just absolutely amazing. So yeah, we do Power Soccer with Line of Health. They're a great partner of ours, and also our team docs. But yeah, we love Power Soccer.
Yeah.
Ask Manny sometime what happened when he and I teamed up against our first team Power Soccer team.
Oh,
we
man.
got destroyed.
I can imagine. I mean, people do not underestimate,
they're so good.
And the same thing when the unified team travels and goes to an away game, and every club has, there's just all these things that and the parents talk about it. As someone who doesn't have someone who needs that, has a child, like, it's just like what that means to them and their family. It's just crazy. Like, so anyways, I just wanted to highlight that because there's just all these things that are just so cool. And a lot of clubs do it, and the teams in the market do it. But speaking of just players and academies, the pro player pathway for you guys, I know has also been a point of emphasis. I had to kind of chuckle when I got the press release that Amos McGee's title changed again. I was like, dude, is there anything you can't do? You're like this Renaissance man. He's so passionate about it.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the goals with the player pathway and what you're trying to do there, and how maybe things are getting tweaked a little bit in the world
I think you probably got some of that from Khaled too. I mean, it's been an emphasis of ours. I mean, it started before Khaled and Eric got here. We even when Adrian was still our coach, he was an advocate then for us needing a second team and really needing to start to build out that player pathway. And that's continued. And I would say probably even greater emphasis at this point in terms of not only having it, but the alignment of it and then the goals around it in terms of minutes played, being very, very committed to it. You're right with Amos. Amos has done a lot. I mean, obviously he was a player, he's coached, he's been on the technical and recruiting side of things for us. But, I think one of the things that's special about having his leadership in that role is he's also sort of a byproduct of the things he's trying to help us create as a club. Grows up in a community playing soccer, and finds his way, earns his way to playing at the top levels. And so his understanding of that from both the club side, but also like what it's like to be a player and what the players need, what it's like to be a coach, what the families need, is really helpful for us. And you'll see that continue to strengthen. It's not just the first team, second team in the academy, but it'll also be our outreach into the community and doing a much stronger and better job of being a leading presence in the community around youth soccer, boys and girls. So we're doing work on that now. We'll see a little bit more of it next year. And then that'll continue, obviously, under Khaled's leadership.
Someone was just asking me about the partnership the other day or the relationship with Spring Lake Park, because now with Addie playing soccer, I swear I'm up at NSC like inordinate amounts of time. And so we had this discussion about academy players that are coming in and how they're able to find schooling and get schooling. And so you're reassuring the parents. So there's all these different things that go into it.
There's a lot more that goes. I mean, if you're in it, then you see it because you're experiencing it all the time. But things that probably you wouldn't be thinking about all the time. But yeah, I mean, the kids are going to school. We're trying to figure out how to support the schooling, make sure it works with training times, make sure that the training times work with first team, second team, and academy kids so that they do get some overlap. I mean, so there's a lot that goes into it. And there's a lot of capabilities you have to have as a club, either like we are with them in partnership around education, but it's everything from, for a lot of kids, transportation is a problem. For some kids, it's housing, so there's a lot that goes into doing that well, and doing it at the level we want to. And I think you won't find a person inside the club who says, yeah, we've got that all perfectly wired yet. We're still building it. We build it more each year and, are trying to grow it at a pace that we can handle and still do it at a very high level. But there is a ton that goes into it.
When you look at this club, and since you joined, I believe it was 2022. I cannot believe it's
2021.
Well, but the first season, the first season was 22. Okay, so you joined in the
first full season was 2022. Yes. Yeah.
But either way, like, does it feel like it's gone fast? Does it feel like it's go slow? Does it feel like some days it depends? Like, and what's your like, I don't know, is there anything at this point that you're like, holy smokes, I did not expect that from this job? Or what?
I mean, it's gone. It's probably like I don't think there's ever been a time in my life when I haven't looked back and said, man, that went fast. I mean, even 26 years at Best Buy in certain ways went really fast. Life
when you were stocking the Red Sox at the Sporting Goods Store.
I was at Dunkers last week for the year-end thing, and Dave brought that story up. I said, Dave, I think we've sort of ridden that story to the end.
You can't steal my material.
No, that's right. And like that's a Kyndra exclusive. But no, I mean, I think I would say it's gone by in a blink. The seasons go fast. The off seasons go fast. I think to your question but I obviously enjoy it. I mean, I think people know I'm enjoying it. I wouldn't do it if I wasn't. It's challenging in certain ways, so I'm learning a lot, which I need to as a person. I think we all do. I think when you get to a place in your life where you stop learning and growing, you're done. And so I'm learning, I'm growing, it challenges me in new ways. So on that front, I'm very happy with it. But yeah, it's gone fast. I think in terms of like, is there anything about it that's like, man, I didn't know this was a part of it? There was a lot I didn't know because I didn't grow up in sports and soccer. But I would say even last year in the off season, which was a hard off season, it's hard when you make those decisions because they impact people's lives. And so it was a hard off season. The timing of it wasn't great, but even within the context of all of that, I do have a lot of life experience in sort of aligning organizations and making changes that you need to make at certain times, depending on, what the organization is dealing with. So even through that, I would say even when people are sort of going ape crazy about, oh my God, you don't have a coach, you're not, and I'm a fan too, so I get it. But I think even on the inside of that, I was pretty calm because it wasn't intellectually hard. It's like if you want alignment and you want to make sure that where you're taking your organization next, everybody that you're bringing in is clear on that, and then you have alignment in what you're doing and how you're doing it, which I thought was the number one thing we needed to improve. Then there's sort of a way you do that. And no matter what the pressure is, you deal with the pressure, you make the decisions, and then you're accountable for the outcomes. And so even within that, I probably wasn't losing a ton of sleep about it. It was more just, we got to work our way through it. So things like that are new because I haven't done them in this context. But you'll hear me say the same thing over and over because it's true. It's still just, it's people, and so that aspect of it, it hasn't. I mean, there's some stuff that surprises me every now and then. I'll be like, oh my God, okay, haven't seen that one before. But it's mostly, it's just mostly people, so it's all the stuff that comes with it, the joys of it, the frustrations of it, the challenges of it. But that's where the meaning in life comes from. So that part is living up to expectations.
Well, speaking of expectations, though, when you did get a sporting director or a chief soccer officer in here, and then the head coach gets in here and the pieces start to kind of fall into place, and the roster was still sort of somewhat the same as it was because there's only so much.
We didn't make a lot of changes last winter. No,
not until the summer transfer window because it's hard to do all those things without the front
plus
office
it goes back
pieces.
to my other point. The number one thing is we have to be aligned as an organization on what our identity is going to be, what our value system is going to be, how we're going to win, and how we're going to behave and collaborate with each other when we win. And so because that's the thing, then all of those other pieces, to your point, needed to be sequenced. So doing a bunch of stuff on the roster last December, before we've got Khaled in, before we've got a head coach, before we've established how we want scouting to work on a go-forward basis, would have been, very short-sighted. So, and on these kinds of things, that it's not hard with Khaled because we don't agree on everything during every day, but we're very clear on who we're trying to be, how we're going to be in doing it. And that part of it is not hard. It's more sort of the other stuff, growing the club, figuring out how to compete when you're smaller scale, how to put a good roster together when you've got other, clubs and the spend around players is going through the roof, but it doesn't always translate to winning, so those types of things. But in terms of what we're trying to do, there is alignment from Bill and the ownership group to Khaled, me, Eric, the coaches, through the organization to the part-time folks who help us on game day.
When you look at how the season went, I know we already recapped 2024, but on that note, do you feel somewhat validated? Because we all can you've hired 1,000 people in any job you've ever been in. You can do the research, you can have the conversations, you can do the background information to find out, is this, not just are they going to be good at their job, but are they a good person? Are they going to be a good fit? Is everything they're telling me in this interview going to come to fruition?
Right.
Do you feel somewhat validated? Because I kind of asked Khaled that about Eric. I said, is there anything that surprises you? He's a young coach, never had a head coaching job. There's a risk there for sure. And any coaching job is a high pressure situation. And he's like, I don't trying to sound arrogant here, but it is what I thought he was. It's like Dennis Green quote, they are who we thought they were, and so do you kind of feel validated with how the season and just the people and the way it went?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I didn't really.
It's okay to toot your own horns.
No, because I just didn't. First of all, we haven't accomplished our goals yet.
But I mean, as just people and hires, and you just talked about the direction and being on the same page and the communication and the call, you know what I mean?
I'll say, I don't really feel like internally, I have to be validated in that way. What I'm proud of is I'm really proud of the people who are here. I mean, I really am. So I said to Bill, I'm doing my own sort of year-end performance appraisal. And I said,
on yourself or on Bill?
Yeah. No, well, I don't know. Maybe ask Bill that one. I'm more on myself. I'll say the one thing that the one thing I did right is that I hired right, and that is these jobs, I mean, and by the way, I'm the same person who in my life has hired wrong. Mm-hmm. So, so I always sort of just keep that in mind. you do the best you can do. It's really important that you're clear first on what you're actually trying to do. Then what do you need to do it? And you and I talked about this last year at this time. I'm like, I'm very clear on what we're trying to do. And so now we got to get people that all sort of aligns. But it's in the end, it's a judgment call. I would agree with Khalid that Eric Khalid wasn't hard. I said that like the second time I talked to him, I was like, yeah, this is our guy. And Eric wasn't hard either. And in part because both of them, they present as they are. So they're authentically themselves and they're consistent in that. I mean, they're both sort of complicated in interesting ways human beings, but they present as they are. And so in that sense, it makes it, and they're both verbal and they're articulate. And so, and because you can get to that, it makes it easier, I think, in ways to make the assessment. But I'm not fooled by the way life works either. You know, I mean, on balance, it was a really good year for us. There were moments when the year was like, oh my gosh, this is a skid and we're miserable. And next year we'll bring some of that too. It's life and it's sports. You know, it will not be, it's never, ever, you know, a straight path to where you're trying to go. It's always, you know, a few steps forward, a bunch of steps back, then more steps forward. So to me, it's way more about like staying clear on what we're trying to accomplish, enjoying the good stuff along the way, and then knowing you're going to deal with stuff that at times you're not going to be as bad as people think you are, and you're also not as good as people say you are in moments either. So you just sort of, you know, don't lose yourself in it is what I would say. So I don't think I've lost myself in any of it.
Well, I always tell people when I do, you know, random broadcast things or whatever, I'm like, you have to be able to laugh at yourself. If you can't, you are screwed in life. Like how many words I've made, you know, how many, as long as you're not really detrimental in something you do, you have to be able to laugh at yourself or it's just going to be a real long ride.
Well, I mean, you already know this, but like I'm on the at least one belly laugh a day.
Yes.
Because otherwise, what are we doing? I mean, if you can't find humor, like in what we're doing together in life, then you're not really looking. And that for me, like when I get to a place where I'm not laughing or I'm not laughing at myself, you know, and everybody's the problem but me, it's like, that's always like, oh, crap. I mean, that's
like, a sign. That's a sign.
It's like, okay, this is a Shari Ballard problem, not anybody else problem. That's for sure.
Speaking of Dr. McGuire, I want to give him some love with his, can I call it a statue? The calling? I mean, that doesn't feel like a statue. That feels like
it's a massive piece of art, isn't it?
A monument. I mean, it's amazing. And I love the drone shot of it. And I was leaving the stadium after that RSL game that night, you know, as a fan. And I'm like trying to take a picture
of it. I died 18 times that night?
Yes, that night.
God.
Hey, but you know what?
That's how I
had the defibrillators real close.
No, I should have answered your question when you said, is there anything that was like, wow? Yes. PKs is the answer to that. It's like, good Lord. I mean, I died 400 times in those 2 games. Okay,
I'm glad you were sitting next to me during that. Artwork. Yes, yes. Like, back to the what does that mean for the club? What does that mean for Dr. McGuire? I mean, he's poured his heart and soul into this club in several different capacities, but, you know, he clearly has a soft spot for art, for philanthropy, for all sorts of things. So him and Nadine, I don't want to neglect her in this, but what does that mean? What does that represent, the calling?
You know, I think you're right about Bill in a lot of ways. You know, in the same way that he sees soccer as a vehicle for bringing community together and truly, and each of us sort of inspiring each other using sport, and in this case, soccer as sort of a vehicle for doing that. He's very congruent. He has the same view of art in that that's what he believes. He believes art is a vehicle for bringing people together. And so, you know, whether it's the calling, whether it's the playground that he and Nadine did, none of that is club stuff. I mean, people have come up to me and said, oh, thank you so much for doing that. And it's like, you have to redirect to Bill, because that is Bill and Nadine in their personal life. It's not the club deciding that this is what they want to do at this stage in life to try to make the community better. You know, and he was, and I mean, you spend time with me and you spend time with Bill. I do not have Bill's mind. So when he was talking to me about the sculpture with Andy, the artist, and he was showing me sort of model pictures of it. And then he was showing me pictures as it was being built, and you could sort of like in the pictures see like human beings in it, and they were so little compared. And I was just like, Bill, I can't even comprehend the scale of it through the pictures. I'm gonna have to see it. Like my brain does not work that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then to be able to see it come to life and to see how it even that has integrated with soccer. So it's like that's a perfect place before and after games where the sport of soccer and art and community are coming together. You know, our supporters meet there, they march over to the game. I mean, it's got the community aspect. It's a perfect illustration of Bill and Nadine's point of view about how these things can and should be used to bring community together. And like I said, they're doing it of their own. They don't seek credit for it. They downplay it. They're remarkable people.
Well, and the United, letters on the other corner, when people are coming from, I think it's University and Snelling. I don't even know.
I'm missing a geography chip in my brain. So don't.
Yeah. So everybody knows what I'm talking about, that hearing. But, people entering by that and taking pictures, people entering by the Loon and the Calling. Now people have the playground to enjoy. Like there's all these pieces that are meant for the community and for people that are going to come and participate as fans of the game. Yeah. What about the club itself and the roster mechanisms? Because you're like deep in it right now as far as, deciding who you're going to protect, which is past now, but, free agency, looking at the transfer window or the, the movement that could happen, the waivers, all the things, right? Yep. And then we have the draft coming up on Friday. Yep. So how much are you involved in that? Because that's just a lot going on. And then also, what's your thought on just sort of the future of this club and after wrapping up 2024 from a actual soccer perspective?
Yeah, I'm involved in it. I would say probably in the same way I'm involved in a lot of aspects of the club, in that I want to make sure that our thinking is solid. I want to know what we're doing. I want to know why we're doing it and how it's going to turn out. I'm not involved in it in terms of coming in over the top and saying, this is what we need to prioritize, or this is the player we're going to sign, any more than I'm going to tell John what the marketing strategy should be, or any more than I'm going to tell, Justin or Zachariah how we should run the stadium on game day. It's about getting people who are really great in their areas to do their jobs, and then making sure what they're doing is connecting to the outcomes that we all agree we're trying to drive as a club, and that we're doing that in a way that aligns with the value system. I think as a practical matter, when we prioritize for the roster, I'm involved in that. I'm involved in what positions are we prioritizing and why. What are we thinking in terms of where we want spend to go and why? Who are the players that we're looking at and why are we looking at them? And then once we're trying to get to a deal, where are we at on the final terms of the deal? And do we like that or not like that? So I'm involved, and Khalid and Bill and I just had a discussion yesterday. So there's, really very good collaboration across the club, good conversation. Khalid's good at a lot of things. He's a really good communicator, and he's a natural collaborator. So he doesn't, and we talk every day. So I'm involved in it. I think in terms of like, what are we thinking about now? You'll hear us sort of say similar things. Each window will work on targeted positions and where we want to try to make the roster stronger. And at the core, we both, and so does the coaching staff, believe the number one job is to make the players who are here a cohesive and collective group that plays as a whole, that really embodies the strengths of each of the players, where guys are playing to their strengths, but it's not a one-man show, and it's about the collective performing in a way that helps us achieve our goals, and behaving in ways on and off the pitch and with our fans that align with the value system of the club. And I think one of the things I'm really excited about heading into the new year is our whole staff is they're going to have a full preseason together.
Coachella, right? I think that was released yesterday.
Yeah, and a full year together. Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, Eric, Dennis, ultimately Tom, didn't come until partway through the season. We made a lot of changes in the support staff around that too, with people in either new jobs or first sort of full year in the job. So I'm actually quite excited. I'm quite excited that we're all going to have a year of doing this together, and not just a partial year. And I'm excited to see what will come out of that. And I have a lot of confidence. I just, like I said, it won't go the way we want it to, and it will not be linear, but I have a lot of confidence in the people that are doing it. Eric as a coach he's creative, he's smart, he's got an ego, which he better have, but he doesn't have a runaway ego. If he makes a decision and it doesn't work, he'll make another decision. And so many times you see leaders in all kinds of roles where they'll make a decision and then they don't want to admit they were wrong. And so they double and triple down on a bad decision. And it's like, that is the dumbest thing you can do as a leader. Like, just make another decision. If you make one and it's wrong, make another one. Mm-hmm. And he embodies that. And so I have a lot of confidence in him and the staff and how they work together. And I have confidence that we'll keep making the roster stronger. And I like the guys who are here. I like them, how they play together. I like their versatility. I also like who they are as human beings. We've just got some world-class human beings who wear a jersey for us.
When I'm always a firm believer in, when with your roster, like, you can't always be talking about who you don't have.
Oh, I mean,
because then what does that mean to the guys in the locker room? And you never would have even gotten through that midseason stretch, right, even though it didn't go the way you wanted, and come out the other side in a positive way. If it had just been like this beat down every day, I'm like, well, look at our roster. Look at how terrible it is. We need this. We need that,
I mean, just think about it. You're 100% right. Think about it in any organization. Really? Yeah. So, I mean, name one successful organization that spends all their time chasing new people. Zero. Right. It's always a combination of people that you have on your team today who are doing great things for you, and then opportunities you have to selectively get better at certain positions. It doesn't matter if it's a sports team. It doesn't matter if it's the front office. It doesn't matter if it's a not-for-profit. It's always the same. It's what's the culture that people are operating in? Who do I have in the roles right now? And are we using their strengths? Are they learning and growing? Are they connected to something larger? And now let me assess and see where I think we need to get a little bit stronger, and we'll work on getting stronger. But you're always doing it from trying to maximize the base of the talent that you have and the culture that's around it. I could not agree with you more. I could not agree with you more.
And then just on that note, though, with some of the new roster mechanisms, just a couple more questions before I let you go. How do you feel like that will impact this club, MLS in general, an additional DP? They're always trying to kind of fiddle with even the League's Cup schedule is supposedly changing. I don't know if that's officially come out. I've heard people speculating on how that's going to go down. Like, all these different things as Don Garber and company are constantly trying to grow this game and, but cater to the league.
I think it's a tough one because, I mean, the answer to your question is we're clear on our identity and we're clear on how we're navigating and trying to win and what our principles are in putting a team together. And we're going to do that as roster mechanisms evolve. That we will keep doing that. And I have confidence that we've got people in the club that know how to think our way through that. And we'll talk about it. We'll adapt to it. We'll take advantage of it where it makes sense for us to take advantage of it as a club. I think to your point about broader MLS, I think it's easy to criticize and sort of nitpick stuff. Collectively, I think what we're trying to do and what Don and everybody's trying to do is figure out how to grow the sport. And when you're trying to figure out how to grow the sport, and it's in a sort of a unique position too, in that most of the other quintessential big U.S. sports were already the best in the world in those sports, and soccer doesn't start from that position here. So there's it's just a different set of mechanics and physics of how do you carve out soccer in the United States and have it be something that works with U.S. fans and works with sports fans. And then the mechanisms of it to let the teams who, really want to grow at a certain pace and grow in a different way, you want to sort of honor that so they can do it. But it's not an easy equation to solve. And you've seen, the maturity in other sports here in the U.S., how they've tried to do the same combination of both maintaining parity so that your league is interesting and on any given day, anybody can win, and also allowing it to grow. And none of that comes without controversy or with people having their own opinions about how to do it. But what I will say is we're all committed to the same thing, whether it's, MLS League Office or it's us in Minnesota, which is trying to really nurture intelligently a sport we love and that we know over time is going to be even more significant in the U.S. than it is. So it's sort of this combination of trying to be a zealot about it because you want it there tomorrow, and also being patient enough to know that we're super young as a sport, and these things have horizons to them. So it's the same thing I said about myself earlier. Let's not lose ourselves while we're trying to sort of navigate our way to that.
So speaking of that, growing the sport, a huge way to grow the sport in the United States is to have big tournaments and big events here. You know, we had Copa America, you got Gold Cup, you've got the World Cup in 2026. So we can talk broader for the league and what that does for everybody. And then there's also been this, you know, we'll get to the schedule release shortly, you know, and everybody's scrapping and clawing for a certain team and individual to enter the state of Minnesota. Every club wants that team, right? Yeah, exactly. I know everybody can't wait for Jack Elliott to come with the Chicago Fire. But in general, how do you feel like, what have you seen? Because you've seen we suffered through February 2nd. I don't even remember what year it was when you and Manny were drinking your cups that were ice cold frozen.
It was 2022.
There you go. So like we've seen events already coming through here, but as the sport continues to grow, not only in, Minnesota, but in the United States, can you talk a little bit about, what Copa America did, what Gold Cup looks like? And then of course we'll get to the schedule release to wrap it up.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a continuation of what you're talking about. It's sort of more frequent and higher level tournaments and interest in those tournaments, and all of them opportunities to just continue to grow the sport. And I think importantly, to help new fans find their way to the sport, because there's one aspect of people who are already in love with soccer. And that's, yes, we want and need those folks. I think the bigger opportunity here is for people who are sports fans who haven't, primarily probably because they've grown up in the U.S., who haven't yet had the opportunity to see, soccer played at this high of a level, with more and more superstars in it and closer to home, and so all of that I think is just, it's going to continue, and it's going to continue through World Cup. And then hopefully after that, Women's World Cup, the Olympics. I mean, there's just a lot on the horizon. It's a little bit of what I was saying earlier. Some of this is you got to keep growing it and be patient and let the horizon play itself out a little bit, because it's not like this is a one and done. There's a lot of stuff coming.
The holidays are here, and that means it's time to get gifting. Get your hands on MNUFC's Holiday Hat Pack this festive season to give that special Loons fan in your life a spot at the first 2 home games at Allianz Field in 2025, along with limited edition waffle knit Loons hat. Visit MNUFC.com/holiday pack for more information on how you can win your gift giving this year. Any highlights on the schedule release? Any stuff you want to spew? I know
just got a cue. We got it yesterday.
I haven't even seen it. I just see my notes in here that I will be sworn to secrecy. Yeah, I know. Well, I'm not going to say anything. Obviously, this isn't going to come out. If this Zoom goes out before the schedule release, that is not on me.
Good point.
I'm just going to say that right there. But I do think people will be real excited to know what this upcoming season looks like for the Loons, because that people are already booking road trips too. We talked about how amazing Allianz Field is, but how many people have you met that can't wait to try different stadiums? I was on a plane with someone last year to St. Louis.
No, we saw that in the playoff games even. Yeah. I mean, we had it was absolutely amazing. No, so the schedule actually officially releases on Thursday of this week. We're obviously doing this on Wednesday. Yes. It'll take Aaron and Kyle and the crew way longer than one day to edit all my junk out of this and make me sound coherent. So I don't think we have to worry about that. But we got a view to the schedule yesterday, and we opened the season at LA. We closed the season.
Galaxy? Sorry.
Oh, no, at LAFC. We open at LAFC. We close at LA Galaxy. And then we got a bunch of really cool stuff in between, including, let me look at the date here, including hosting Miami on May 10th.
Oh, wow. So that's earlier in the season.
So that should be fun. Middle of May.
That's amazing. I mean, that'll be great.
At Allianz Field.
Why
hosting
Allianz?
Miami.
I mean, we've seen a lot of places switch it up so they
Yeah,
can
I just
get
saw
more
today. It looks
attendance.
like Columbus maybe is moving their game to Cleveland. No, it's
Yeah.
got to be at Allianz. I mean, there's probably two main benefits to moving it.
Mhm.
Number one, if you go to a larger venue, you do give more people the opportunity to see the game, and you do probably. I mean, I don't know. Miami will be fun to watch anyway. It'll be more fun if Messi plays, but they'll be fun to watch anyway. But I think you certainly would if you moved it, give more people the opportunity to see the game and maybe see arguably the greatest player of all time. And you have an opportunity to earn more revenue, to be honest.
Right.
So those would be the pluses to doing it. And we certainly have thought about it and talked about it. But what it came down to for our club, no way, baby. Allianz Field was made to host. Allianz Field was made to host this soccer game and all of our soccer games. Our season ticket members, who I talked about before, have been so great for us. So uprooting them and trying to put them in different places when they've been so supportive
Loyal.
of us. Our partners who have been with us from the beginning and have helped us grow this, to sort of uproot them, the community, like, okay, we're going to host a really cool game and now we're going to move it out of the community. It just, no way. It just couldn't, nobody, we did what we should do as good business people. Like, we did the math on it. And then we all just looked at each other and we're like, Allianz Field was built for this. It has to be there. So that one, actually, there's some parts of this job that are hard. That one, from the ownership group, who were like, Allianz Field, we don't, more money if you move it. Absolutely not. We're going to reward our fans. We're going to reward our partners, the community. And that place was built to host games like this, not just Miami, but games like this. So all the way to, like, I do a monthly meeting with our leaders inside the club, not just the executive team, but people who are leading big functions for us. I posed this question to them. I'm like, okay, you guys, if we were to get Miami, here's the math if we move it. Here's the benefit in terms of more people seeing it. Here's what it might do to extend the brand. Here's what it looks like if we keep it. Really good discussion. People super thoughtful. And when we said, okay, if we host Miami, it's Allianz Field, I got to tell you, like, nobody frowned. They all probably look like I look. We can't wait. We can't wait.
Yeah. There are some moments where money does not rule. And I understand you did the math, but like, there are certain things that this is one of those things. This was meant for that moment.
I mean, it's sort of like you have
this game or other big games.
No, and there may be a time in the future, I don't know, where we feel like a larger venue would be the right decision.
Right.
I don't know.
You're not closing it off forever. It's just
I wouldn't, because there might be some time where it makes better sense to do it. Yeah. But no, I think for this, it's just, I mean, I think partly what you have to do in these jobs is you sort of have to, like, envision yourself like standing right in front of the people that are going to be affected by the decision. Yeah. And then you have to tell them the why. And so it's like, what am I going to say? Yeah. To, like, our season ticket members, to our partners, to the community, like, what am I going to say to all of us? Because I want to be in Allianz on game day too. I mean, I want to be there even when we're not playing. It doesn't matter if it's Miami. Like, I want to host World Cup qualifiers there. Like, I want Allianz Field to be the polar outpost for the U.S. men's and national women's team. Like, I want I want the St. Paul Cup there. Like, I want cool soccer events at Allianz. So we have that in common, and I feel very grateful that decision was easily supported by all members of the club. So that feels very cool.
Yeah, that feels great. And honestly, like, it's tough once you know the schedule and who's on it and when this thing gets going, because it's like super far away, but yet not very far away. And
no, I mean, our home opener is March 1st. First game is February 22nd. But somebody asked me yesterday here once we had seen the schedule, they're like, okay, Shari, what game are you most looking forward to? And I said, all of them, because they all count the same. Which is 100% true.
Yes,
all of them.
Yes. I don't know. I've seen you sitting kind of on your hands in front of the booth, not very into some of the games. So
no, in fact, I'm finally healed. I had a little self-inflicted wound.
Did you punch something?
No. So this was during penalty kicks of our home game against Salt Lake to advance in the playoffs. And I was sort of, well, you know where my seats are. So I was in front of, like, the broadcast booth. And Cristiano and a couple of our other coaches were up where the guys, film.
Yes,
So
right
I
there.
jumped up and went up there when we scored, and I hit Cristiano hard and like grabbed him, and he grabbed me, and I don't know what I did, but I was driving home, and I'm like, man, I look, and my finger is so messed up. I'm like,
It's like you got in a bar fight. You don't remember
so
how it
bad.
like all of a sudden you're like, what the heck?
No, it was so bad. People are like, well, Shari, as long as you're injuring yourself so far and you haven't injured anybody else with all of your excitement, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good problem to have is when you're that passionate. That's why we love sports is because you never know what the heck is going to happen. It's a benefit and a detriment when it crushes you, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Well worth it. So
Hey, your Gophers had a great year too, huh?
yeah, they did. I know. I watched that last game against North Carolina. I mean, I kind of had a feeling it's a tough task, and it's like basically a
that's
home
tough,
game for UNC. But yeah, no, that was fun to watch them and see how
Super
they.
fun.
Oh my gosh,
Aaron and I
we
were
went to the
texting.
NCAA game here against
Yeah,
South
that was
Dakota
amazing.
State, and it was
Yeah.
actually a really nice night for it. Which it could have been bad, but yeah, they had a great
Awesome
season. I'm a little nervous. I said this to SJ, who's like the ops person, just to go off subject here. They're two central midfielders. I don't know if you watched any games when number 8 and 9, and they're like graduate seniors, like grad student. I mean, they played every minute of every game. I don't know who's jumping in that role, and who knows nowadays with the transfer portal and everything else. But
They went beast mode. Are you kidding
oh my
me?
gosh, they are incredible. It's amazing. I love those two in the middle, and they're just great people, is what I've heard, which is always a bonus.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Aaron and I were texting. We had Galaxy and and they had North Carolina. It's like we both got big tasks in front of us. And then at the end of the night, we're both like, oh, sports killing us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
You should be proud of them. That was a great year for those guys.
Yeah, they're excited for the run, but it's always tough when it ends. So I appreciate you taking the time, Shari. I've eaten up an hour of your day. I appreciate it. You're
good.
like, oh my God, I'm late for 7 different meetings. So thanks for taking the time. Happy
They'll
New
edit
Year.
us down. No worries.
Well,
Merry
it doesn't
Christmas.
make your meetings any less that you've missed. All right, thanks, Shari. I appreciate it.
Eddie too.
Yes, you too. Enjoy the family.
Okay. See ya.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. I'm guessing in 2025, we'll do another episode of Sound of the Loons after the roster's kind of sorted before preseason starts, and we'll catch up on Sound of the Loons presented by Allina Health.